This one was on film. 5 words resonating across the Twitter sphere less than 2 weeks after the Ferguson, Missouri grand jury chose not to indict Officer Darren Wilson in Michael Brown's death. Now a New York grand jury chooses not to indict Officer Daniel Pantaleo in Eric Garner's death. And here's the big difference here. There's no conflicting visual account of what happened on Staten Island. You just saw the video. And joining me now to talk about this, a man with expertise on all fronts in this one, criminal defense attorney, law enforcement, Philip Holloway. You just completed a class in positional asphyxia, police force. So what we're talking about here. So as we take this in, my layman's eye say that's a chokehold. What do you say?
It sure looked like one to me. It's positional asphyxia. Basically, the windpipe is cut off like a garden hose when you crimp it, and the air cannot get into the lungs. It's also complicated by the fact that other officers are laying on his torso, which prevents his chest from being able to rise normally.
Okay, let's go through this in order. Was it too much force? Because a lot of people say, you look anywhere, Twitter, Facebook, he was just selling cigarettes. Did you need to even take him down in the first place?
Police officers are only allowed to use as much force as is necessary to effect an arrest. Now, clearly, at some point in time, he resisted arrest, and they were authorized to use some restraint techniques and some degree of use of force. The key question for the grand jury is, was it too much force? I think some of the question that they may have had was it just this one officer, or perhaps all of the officers that may have been involved in the death?
Okay, and you and I are going to delve in here a little bit deeper, but I want to let everybody know, NYPD prohibits chokeholds, including but not limited to any pressure to the throat or windpipe, which may prevent or hinder breathing or reduce air intake. So, okay, we see that. And you know Daniel Pantaleo, who testified to the grand jury, I mean, we're not privy to this as of yet. I'm sure he didn't admit that, yeah, that was a chokehold. Correct. Maybe just a bad takedown. So tell us, you're the expert here, and you use me as to help teach everybody. Where does it go wrong and become a chokehold? Okay,
well, what's the preferred method is to secure the individual in a face-up position as opposed to face down.
Because more pressure, right?
Right, what we saw in the video. So if I'm taking you down and I put my arm directly across your throat like this, and then you fall forward, it's going to put that pressure on your windpipe. A better way of doing it might be to use the side of your neck and use my leg to perhaps sweep you back.
So there's nothing in here.
Right, so that you're on the ground and you have the other officers help get your arms back behind your back. That way you're in a face-up position. You don't run the risk of this positional asphyxiation.
Okay, so then here's another thing that many, myself included, if someone is saying in upwards of 10 times, I can't breathe, don't you back off? He's unarmed, accused of selling cigarettes.
Well, it's always easy to go back and Monday morning quarterback these things. We don't know if Pantaleo actually heard him say that. It certainly was clear on the video, and it seems like he probably heard it, but it was certainly some indication, and it should have raised a lot of red flags that they weren't doing this right. This policy has been in place by the New York Police Department since 1983, if I'm not mistaken. The reason they put it in place is because it is lethal. It causes death, and unfortunately, that's what happened here. But we know that if he had complied in the first place, he wouldn't be dead. And we also know that if the police had not used the chokehold, he probably would not be dead.
All right. Phil, thanks again. We're hitting this on all angles.